Let's do it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for joining me here today. I'm really excited. We've got two really special guests here. We're going to be talking of all things kids, about anxiety in kids and teens. I have Renee Jain from GoZen, which is a fabulous, fabulous website for kids and teens. It has loads of really practical resources. And Dr. SHEFALI, who is a clinical psychologist and has written some wonderful books about conscious parenting. And I was in the middle of reading one of her books, and I had the opportunity to work with both Renee and SHEFALI. So I'm really excited to have you both here today. Now, what we're going to be talking about is you have both co-authored a new book about transforming anxiety in kids and teens, Superpowered, and it's about how to build courage and resilience. Now, this is such an incredible resource. It's really strengths-based, which I love, and it's just a way to normalise anxiety and get the conversation with kids and teens going. Can you tell me a little bit about the book, about the format of the book? So it's based on superpowers and what happens to these and how to get them back. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. Most of the time when people talk about anxiety, whether it's kids or teens or grown-ups, they are talking and thinking about something that has gone terribly wrong and something that needs to be fixed, right? Oh my goodness, this person is so anxious, or oh my goodness, I am such a worrier and I wish I could get rid of it. So this book takes a different approach. What we're here to tell all kids and all teens is that being worried is actually okay. It means that you have a strong mind. It's part of who we are. And yeah, sometimes, the worried brain can go on overdrive and then we can work with it. However, being worried, it's not anything to get rid of. It's part of your humanity. And so we take a very different approach in this book in that we don't want to get rid of this part of you.
And I love that idea, because the truth of it is we can't get rid of anxiety. We need to live with it. What is probably the main message from the book that you would like kids and teens to know who are going, okay, so I understand I have to live with it, but it just feels terrible. And it feels like I'm the only one going through this. Am I broken? What is it? And that's the sort of thing I get a lot from kids and teens. What would you say to kids and teens who say that?
Yeah, I think, as Renee said, we are helping parents and kids understand their complex inner world. We get so overwhelmed when we have feelings that we just react. And this book teaches kids to understand their inner feelings so that they don't necessarily react, but they understand the messages that these feelings are telling them. So they don't act out in a reaction that works against them. They use the message and transform the message in a way that actually makes them stronger. So we allow the feelings to be understood and then transformed, rather than you have a feeling, you get scared of the feeling, and you either shut down or you react. And parents need a language to communicate with their kids. And this book allows parents to have a language to not get overwhelmed when their kids get overwhelmed.
And I think that's a big part of it for parents, because we can't help as parents. We love them so much, and it's hard to see our kids in distress. It's hard not to buy into that. What would you say to parents? What do you think for parents who are saying, yeah, but it's just so horrible when this happens. I just don't know. I don't know what to do. What would you say to parents? What is something that they can anchor to when this is happening that can help them be what they need to be for their kids and teens in those moments of big anxiety?
I'm going to come back to really what we're saying about this shift, this mindset shift about what feelings are and the purpose that they serve. I think that we have forgotten, most of us know that happiness serves a purpose, right? And it's something that we all want, and that joy serves a purpose, and that cheer serves a purpose. But I really, truly believe that the first step for parents and for kids is to reorient themselves with the purpose of feelings. The purpose of an emotion is to send a message. Sometimes the messages are sent too often. Sometimes they're sent when they're not, when we don't need them to be sent. But anger, guilt, sadness, negativity, worry, all of these serve a purpose. Anger, for example, which is one of the most demonized emotions, can be such an incredible catalyst for positive change. Most activism in the world has some anger involved in it. And so for parents, the first thing is to really investigate your own relationship with feelings. You know, as soon as you see your child is worried, does it bring up some of your own anxiety? And if so, why? Because you think that the feeling is bad, because you think that there's something that they can't handle. What is it that's making us so uncomfortable? I would posit that a lot of that discomfort comes from our relationship with feelings, that we think that we're only supposed to be the good stuff, right? And the other stuff should be shoved under the rug. And so really the beginning of this process of changing our relationship with anxiety instead of changing the anxiety is about really changing our relationship with all feelings.
I love that, and it comes back to as parents, sometimes the greatest change we can facilitate for our kids actually happens with us first. So for kids and teens, if there are kids or teens watching this, what would you say is a way that they can start to transform this relationship with anxiety? Because anxiety feels horrible when it hits. It feels so awful and scary, and that's actually what holds them back. And it's those messages of self-doubt and that deficiency story that anxiety tells so well and has been telling for such a long time. What would you say is a way, if there are kids and teens watching this, that they can start to transform that message and that, or take that message and create a different relationship with anxiety?
Well, I think what we do is this big feeling of anxiety, we normalize it and validate it. We give it space to exist. And then we help the kid understand why they're feeling the anxiety and what is the anxiety saying to them. So, and these are things adults go through as well when we feel the pressure to perform, to fit in, to be perfect, to succeed. When we think about the future and we keep worrying about our control about future events, these are the core pervasive reasons we feel anxious. So just by validating it, allowing it to exist, understanding you're not alone, and then understanding, of course, if you feel like you have to be perfect in everything, for example, you're going to feel anxiety. That this is natural. This is the pathway that leads to anxiety. It's not something that's going crazy in your unique brain. It's a natural thing that culture has put on us that leads to anxiety. So just this way of communicating to the kid that this is why you're feeling this way is hugely relieving and revealing. And then we, and Renee can talk about this, we give so many techniques. The book is filled with schematics and clear techniques. I love this one the most. That's why it opens up easily to this one. For example, this one is called,
your favorite.
Yep, it's called laddering, where we teach the kid how to, break down what they're feeling, write it out, start at the biggest fear and then break it down to chunks so that they can create concrete, smaller bite actions toward the bigger goal. So we give tons of techniques in this book. It's full of techniques. This one is called Stop the Dominoes. And we help demystify this whole big thing called anxiety.
We really ask that kids create, as you said, Karen, a relationship with their anxiety. And even in the book, we have them, we can see the book, we have them create a character that they can have a conversation with within the
Yeah.
book, and that character represents their anxiety, and they begin to talk to their anxiety as a part of them, you know, and they begin to reorient their relationship with it. One of the biggest things, you know, I grew up a very anxious kid and I felt powerless to it. One of the biggest things that this book, Superpowered, does is it shows you where your power is. You know, it
Mm.
shows you how to use that power. It shows you that you do have things within your control. When it comes to anxiety in particular, and Karen, you know this very well, there are a lot of bodily symptoms that go along when you're having an anxious experience that scare kids. And it's interesting because it's the fear response, right? So you might have the sweaty palms and the racing heart and the dizziness and the dry throat, and that feels bad. And how many kids or teens will say to you, oh my goodness, this feels so bad. And some kids even say to me, you know, I feel like I'm going to die sometimes. It's so bad. I have a hard time breathing. So one of the things that we do in this book is to show them if it really is anxiety, then it's incredibly uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. You are
Yeah.
still safe. And that fear actually can be a conscious choice. And
Mm.
so we give them the movie theater example. When you're in a movie theater and you're watching a horror movie, your heart might start racing, but you never consciously believe that you are in danger because
Mm.
there is a higher level brain process where your brain observes yourself saying, yeah, my heart's racing, but I'm not really in danger, so I'm safe. It's the same thing with anxiety. You're
Yeah.
safe.
It is, and I love that. And there's something you say in your book, and it is the movie theatre metaphor, which I love so much. Is our brains can register one thing, but we can feel something else, and that's where the power lies. And it's that gap, and there only has to be just a small gap between that registering of threat and what we choose to do before we can make for us to be able to make a conscious choice. And your book is so full of strategies that kids can use for this. I want to go back to you have a really powerful message in your book about perfectionism, which I think is so common with anxiety. You say being a perfectionist isn't about getting better at something; it's about already being the best at something. Can you talk us through that? I think that's a really powerful way to think about it.
Yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
know, there's such a disease these days
Mm.
around being perfect and you're not good enough. And social media has created this comparison in our children that they are now comparing themselves with everyone and anyone. You know, it's not just your neighborhood kids. So our teens today, especially, are really being plagued by unrealistic standards of perfectionism. So, as
Mm.
long as you have this inside you, you're going to constantly feel not good enough. And then you're constantly feeling this pressure to be something else. So, this is a never ending losing battle that teenagers, even adults, have now because of social, and social media is a big conduit of that, a big feeder of that. So, in this
Mm.
book, we talk about how you don't have to fit in. You know, you have to belong. And we talk about developing your authentic superpower of the way you used to be, where you used to feel whole and you used to feel powerful, being original, and you've lost that now. And we just remind kids that you do have a choice to go and recover that. It's in you. You have the power to be original. You've just forgotten because of all these demands, and you don't have to fit in. You can just belong to yourself and feel whole in that.
Mm.
With
And
a
I
lot of
love.
times on the, I'm sorry, go ahead, Karen.
No, you go.
I was going to say, you know, oftentimes when kids come to us and even their parents, and they say, you know, my kid is a bit of a perfectionist, or I'm a bit of a perfectionist,
Mm.
there's always this hint of pride. You know, I'm just kind of a little bit of a perfectionist, where it is what they're implying is that, listen, I just have really high standards and I like to do things really well. And maybe I'm just totally ambitious. But what we see with true perfectionism is these kids are not actually ambitious. They're not going toward their goals. They get paralyzed
Yeah.
because they want to show up as perfect. it is very difficult for them to be authentic because they don't want to show up with flaws. And we all start poorly at everything we do before we get good at it, but they want to start good. So what we really see with kids who are perfectionists is they get completely paralyzed. These are the kids who stop trying out for teams, they stop raising their hands in class, they stop doing anything that's going to prove that they make mistakes, right? Like we all do. And so what we want to teach kids is they want to go for mastery, right? When we're talking about perfectionism, we are talking about mastery of something. We're talking about going deep into a learning of something, into a sport, into an academic study, deep into that. And that requires making a zillion mistakes and getting back up again. So, again, in this book, I think we put forth an idea and kind of disrupt an idea on what perfectionism really is. Perfectionism it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's the thing that gets you stuck.
Absolutely. And I think that's a conversation as adults that we can have as well. So the superpowers in the book, you speak about 5 of them. And the thing I love about the foundations of this book are, if we could strip anxiety back from these kids when they're feeling anxious, they really are extraordinary kids. And the book really builds the idea that you were actually born with everything that you need to be extraordinary or to be the best version of who you're going to be. Anxiety shuts it down for a little while, but we can get it back. And it is based on those superpowers. And we've spoken about the being authentic and being true to who you are. And there's loads of strategies to bring that back. So the book then goes into just the people watching, strategies to bring these superpowers that are already in you that you're born with back, which I love. And there is strategy after strategy. And it's a toolbox because not everything will work for every child, but there will be something in that book that will work for every child. What are some of the other superpowers you talk about that these kids are born with? Because they won't describe themselves often as powerful and brave and strong, but they really are. Can you talk us through some of the other superpowers you talk about?
Yeah, so power in the book Superpowered is actually an acronym, and the P is for presence, right? So this, as you said, Karen, these are the powers that we come into the world with. These are the strengths that every child comes into the world with. They're extremely mindful and present. And the O is for originality, right? What child is not original and they own their originality? The W is for whole, because we all come into this world feeling worthy. We all feel whole. We don't need some medal around our neck or some trophy or some grade to make us feel worthy and whole, right? We already are that. We are energized when we come into the world. We're not tired and overwhelmed and fried. We're full of energy, and we are resilient, right? It takes a lot for a kid to be able to do the things they do when they come into the world, learn to pick up a spoon and feed themselves, learn to walk, learn to go to the bathroom by themselves. There's a million things that kids have to learn how to do, and they try over and over again. I have never yet to this day have met a kid who did not want to master their skills, that, they didn't want to model what all the adults around them were doing. And that takes an incredible amount of resilience. So those are the superpowers. I mean, there's so many more. Those are the ones that we really focus on in the book.
Yeah. And how to bring those back and how to have the conversation with kids. I think one of the things, as I was reading the book, I thought, this is a book for kids and teens, but it's actually a book for parents or anyone who works with kids and teens as well. How to have that conversation with them, how to get the conversation started. Because I actually hear a lot from kids and teens, how do I have this conversation with my parents? How do I start talking about anxiety with my parents or my important people? What would you say about having the conversation, starting the conversation, either for kids and teens or for parents? How can we start talking about this? And the book I think it's a brilliant way for parents to get the language and the concepts and the ideas to make this really approachable. It's not about breakage. It's not about deficiency. It's not about any of that. It's about bringing back what you've already got. So if we have kids and teens who are going, I'm just not reading that. I'm just not going to read it. What would you say to parents who might have kids who are struggling with anxiety, but they just can't? Their kids aren't. They feel helpless. They feel lost, which is probably a reflection of their child's helplessness anyway. But what would you say to those parents? Is where do we start with the conversation here?
Well, I think if your kid is not going to read this and the parent chooses to read it, which we strongly advocate, it'll show parents that they have been also anxious about anxiety, and they've been carrying a lot of these fears within them that the kids have been absorbing. They want their kids to be successful and A graders and super achievers and perfect and fitting in. And they get to examine their own part in this and how they've contributed to this. And then it'll give them a language to understand their own anxieties and maybe heal themselves a little bit. And then when they see their kid being anxious, they can make the translation and the interpretation, my kid looks like he's apathetic or looks defiant or is acting like a procrastinator, but maybe, like Renee said, they're plagued with perfectionism. Now I understand my kid better, and I'm not going to put so much pressure on the kid. So it's definitely in a kid-friendly way written for the parents' inner teenager and the parents' forgotten child, so it can remind the parent, it's the kid and the parent that this book helps as well. The book that every one of us should have had as kids, but we never did. So it's definitely going to allow parents to understand their own anxieties and fears, what they were never helped with, so that now, their kid may not want to read it, but the parent understands the kid much better.
Absolutely. And I would say the exercises in the book, they are for kids and teens, and they're perfect for kids and teens. But for sure, I think a lot of this starts with us, and and I love the book because it's a conduit for us as their important adults to start thinking, kids are the greatest teachers. We teach, they teach us more. And I think the book is a really great way to do that. Something that's really common with especially adolescents is social anxiety. So it can just feel really tough just to do anything where there's other people around, and it can be hard to even know what to say or do. I also am aware that it can happen when there are friends around, so kids can see their friends getting stuck. What would you say to kids who feel that stuckness and that anxiety about moving forward into situations where there are other kids or other people where social anxiety might be really coming at them full force?
Yeah. So first and foremost, you are not alone. You are so not alone. And everybody wants to belong somewhere with someone. And you really, truly, that belonging really, really, truly starts with yourself, right? You will never get any more belonging than you will get within yourself. So the first step is really to own who you are, and the next steps about going out and actually being able to talk to people and make eye contact with people and, actually make social connections. That's something. But before you do that, back up. Let's back up to love who you are, to own who you are, to accept who you are, and to remember that you are incredible, right? And as a testimony to that, think about the times when you actually feel comfortable being yourself. Think about the times maybe with a good friend or in a family situation where you are comfortable being who you are. In those situations, you're incredible, you're amazing, you're awesome, right? And so all this is is a hurdle, like a small hurdle that we all have, frankly. Everyone feels social anxiety at one time or another, in one situation or another. And there are lots of steps in the book. In fact, Dr. Shefali's favorite exercise in the book that she opens the book to, Shefali, you want to open the book to that? Laddering is a fantastic exercise if you're feeling social anxiety. So you create miniature steps until you hit your big goal. And every day it can be something simple, you know, make the goals for yourself. Maybe it's making eye contact, and that's the first goal. Maybe the next goal is smiling at someone and saying hi. These can be baby steps. Take the baby steps to get to where you want to be. There we go, laddering. Expose yourself to your fear, you know, in small, small bits, and you will see that you make progress.
And it is small steps, and we and that's where the big ones are built from. And the thing is that it can feel like such a slow crawl towards being where you want to be, but it's that change and it's that growth, and it happens, and then it kind of, in my experience, it gets quicker and quicker as you move on. So it doesn't matter how slow it is, and it doesn't matter how small the steps are. I think this book is, I'm so grateful to you both for bringing it into the world. I think it's a wonderful resource for kids and teens, and for parents or anyone who works or lives with kids and teens, because the truth is, it's not just about kids who are really knocked down by anxiety. Anxiety is on a spectrum. So, and they're all going to experience it on some level at some time. It's always going to come just before those big things. And if we want them to keep moving through their comfort zone, there's going to be anxiety there somewhere. So there's strategies that can really expand all kids and teens. So I think it's a brilliant book. I'm grateful to both of you for bringing it in to the world, and even the way of looking at anxiety as these strengths and these superpowers that are already in you. It's comforting, it normalizes the discussion, and it opens the way to the discussion. Now, where and when can people get their hands on this book?
Well, the book is available now, and all you have to do is go to getsuperpowered.com, and you will find all of the buying options there. So it's getsuperpowered.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you for joining us here today. There were some really powerful messages that came through there, and I really do hope people go and buy that book. And even if you just do a few things differently, that's where it'll start. It doesn't have to start in one big leap. It's a few little things. So thank you so much for coming along and sharing your wisdom with us and making the world a better place for our kids and teens, one by one by one.
Thank you so much for the work you do, and thank you for having us. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.